Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Today we're going to do another top 10 list, slightly different today. In response to a question I asked in a video last week, I wanted to gauge the audience's opinion on the price range they're most likely to buy at. So the response was from about $500 to $1,000 seemed to be the most popular. Yesterday I held a poll in the UGWC Facebook group. There's a link in the description. If you've missed the poll, have a look in the Facebook group. There was some fantastic nominations, but we do know a lot of this already. You know, there was the Oris Aquis, there was the Sinn 104, although it's slightly above $1,000. What else? The Squale 1521. There was, you know, a lot of watches that we all know about. Today I wanted to talk about 10 of these that I feel don't get enough love, that should really get more appreciated because I think they offer incredible value, horological significance, quality, and watches that you can be proud of that I really do feel are, you know, bang per buck and should get more attention. So anyway, let's roll the intro and get into today's video. Before I get into this, I've got to do wristwatch check. Now, yesterday was Seiko Saturday. It's Sunday as I'm filming this, and I'm still wearing the SKX. This is my Hunter Pro mod. If you haven't seen the review of this, I did it a while ago now. I can't take it off. It's very difficult. It's getting a lot of wrist time. I just love the Cerakoted, you know, the all blacked out look of it. It's just very tough and yeah, very fun as well. Anyway, so that is wristwatch check done. Let's dive in. Now, this is a top 10 list. It's not in order of importance or anything like that. It's purely for reference. And guys, if there are any watches you feel really should be on this list, because to be honest, I could think of about 100 watches. In fact, I might return to this subject because there's just so much to choose from at this price range. $500 to $1,000, including the used market. So I've added some vintage pieces in this list as well. My number 10 is the Stover Flieger. This is a watch I've actually reviewed. I'll add a card up there and a link in the description. But the classic Flieger, and classic spelt with a K, I think that's the German way. Stover, of course, is a famously German brand from, I think, the Black Forest. Again, if I get any of the details wrong, please refer to my review. But this really is an important, and I'm going to say it, iconic wristwatch. It is one of 5 companies, I believe, that actually produced flight watches or pilots' watches for the Air Force, for the German Air Force during World War II. But what is fantastic is they offer a huge amount of variety. Also, you can order and specify exactly the type of dial you want, the strap. They even offer services like customizing the buckle, all kinds of stuff. And variation sizes from, I think, there is the 40mm case, there's a 36mm case. And what really struck me about this watch when I reviewed it was the quality. They haven't changed the design very much. I mean, it's carefully nuanced and, you know, updated with the contemporary ETAs, of course, which they do decorate beautifully. But what is lovely is that you still get that feeling of that old world. And actually, come to think of it, I think it's 2017 as I'm recording this. It's the 90th anniversary that Stover have been making this, and it's their most famous watch. Stover have a ton of amazing wristwatches. I do recommend have a look at their boutique, but what is very cool about Stover is they're really embracing 21st century. They have an outstanding online boutique at this price point, incredible value for money, and the quality, it's nipping at the heels of the luxury Swiss brands. It really is. Just under 800 euros. It hasn't aged. It's a classic. It's a true classic. That aesthetic from the hands to that dial layout, is timeless. It's always going to be classic from, you know, another 90 years from now. Let's move on to my number 9, and this is a personal favorite I've owned, and actually I've owned twice, and it's the Hamilton X Patrol. This is a really outstanding chronograph. Of course, we have the Valjoux 7750 in there, which we all know and love. Day date, convocation there. We have an inner rotating bezel with a second crown at the 9 o'clock. What I love about this piece is it's just got a ton of character of its own. It has the feeling of a Navitimer, and at first glance it does look like a Navitimer, but it has little nuances in its design. The display back is done in a propeller blade shapes. Very, very cool indeed. It is a big watch. I think it's 42 millimeters. Automatic, of course, well, as we all know. And that's also something I should say about the Fliegers. You can get a choice of manual wind and automatics. Anyway, back to the Hamilton. I bought it once on the rubber strap, which comes with a really cool deployment, and I had the leather version. You can also get it on bracelets. There's the Panda dial, and then there's the more classic dial. Just a smidgen under $1,000. It's fantastic. As we all know, Hamilton have a really incredible history, especially with aviation watches. I love Hamilton. Swiss made, of course, part of the Swatch Group now, but for most of their existence, they were an American brand, and I think it doesn't get enough love. I mean, you see them pop up in the Facebook group every so often, but they're a fun aviation chronograph. Actually, I did mention it before in which was it? I think my affordable alternatives for the Navitimer. It's a great alternative because it's not a homage. It's got its own unique personality. I especially love the way they've done the buttons. They're kind of curved, and the quality's there as well, and I definitely think worth every single penny. Okay, so that was my number 9. Let's go on to something completely different. My number 8 has got to be the Junghans Maxbill, but not just the standard black or white dial. This is the anthracite dial, which is a very rich dark grey. I have actually reviewed this. I was lent this particular watch in by my good friend Art. If you're watching, a shout out to you, my friend. I love it because it's a bit more unique than your standard Maxbills. The Maxbill, of course, as the name suggests, designed by, well, it's a reissue of a classic design by the legendary Bauhaus artist. This kind of leads into the discussion because we all know brands like Nomos, and there's countless watches that are Bauhaus inspired, but this is true Bauhaus. Maxbill, of course, was a graduate of the famous Bauhaus school. He went on to be a professor, a teacher, an artist, a sculptor, a true polymath, a true talent, supremely talented. But what makes it true Bauhaus was that it was designed with the ideology. I mean, a lot of his mathematical theories about the proportions and dimensions has gone into this design. It's Junghans' most iconic watch, without a shadow of a doubt, probably the most successful. But this piece for me embodies all of that class, all that elegance, all that simplicity, all that form and function that goes into the true Bauhaus. It's a beautiful, beautiful watch. I have reviewed it. Check it out. If I haven't mentioned it, it's automatic, of course. It's 38 millimeters in diameter as well, so punches way above its weight in terms of its combination of unique heritage and style and elegance. It's a true icon, really is. Okay, so that was my number 8. Let's move on to my number 7. I've got to have a Sinn in here, right? But my choice is the Sinn 556. Now, there's a few versions of this watch. Now, we mentioned the Stover, the classic Flieger. Well, this is a kind of modern interpretation of a Flieger. It's even more simplified, modernist in its aesthetic, high contrast dial. There's various versions. You can get the 556A with the 12, 3, 6, and 9. Also, you can get it with and without the date. What I love about Sinn, another fantastic German company, is the quality they offer. Now, these are a smidgen over $1,000, but well worth it. They come on a variety of different straps. They do have lug guards, a little bit more contemporary. They have drilled lug holes as well, which is fantastic because these are very versatile pieces, mainly due to their simplicity. Now there's the 556 red edition with the red second hand, which I really like, gives it a little bit more pizzazz, personality. Then there's the Mocha dial version, which is, again, these are about $100 over, about 1100 I think. But my favorite's got to be the 556A, simply because when loomed up, I'll make sure I put a picture. The numerals, of course, loomed, and it just looks stunning. Inside, I think it's a Sellita SW200, although I can't be sure. You get sapphire glass and everything you'd expect. In fact, actually, that is something we should mention with the Hamilton and what was the other one? The Stover, of course, sapphire glass. I believe the Maxbill comes with a mineral glass, but double check in my review. The Sinn, it's a tough watch. Get a display back. They've custom signed the rotor. Also, they regulate the watches. They do all kinds of drop tests, and you know, they really do have a fantastic attention to detail. Performance is there, it's durable, they're built like absolute tanks. Bold, clean, classic. The movement they use is top grade chronometer level, so that attention to detail and quality is not just on the outside but also on the inside. I think it's about 100 meters water resistant. The case is satinized to really complete that tool watch look. You know, it's what Sinn do best. It really is. Now, it is Sinn's entry-level watch, so to speak, price-wise, but by no means is it, you know, lacking in quality. No shortcuts have been taken on this piece. I think it's a 38mm as well, so if you're smaller wristed, this is definitely a great option to go with. Okay, so that was my number 7. Let's move on to my number 6. Another aviation watch, but this time a little bit more horologically significant because it was one of the first GMT multi-time zone wristwatches, and it actually predates the Rolex GMT Master by 1 year. And this, of course, is the Glaceo 1953. It's a reissue of their most classic Airman. Now the Airman, I love the Airman. We all know recently Glaceo have been bought by Invicta, but this watch was released before the buyout. Also, we've got to mention the Base 22 if you want a more contemporary, modern interpretation of the Airman. But for me, the vintage charm of this piece is kind of cream, off-white dial as well, very military tool watch aesthetic. You can rotate the bezel. There's a second crown at the 4 o'clock that unlocks the bezel, and you can set that. Can't remember the precise movement. I'm pretty sure it's the 2892, although double check. I'm a big fan of Glaceo. For me, the Invicta, buying them doesn't make a difference because this watch was an icon. This watch was a trendsetter. It has a huge military following. It was worn by Vietnam pilots before Invicta. So that happened regardless. It doesn't make a difference. There are a few naysayers that are kind of discrediting Glaceo, but look, they've got to compete. You can't. Some of these brands, especially in this harsh market these days, they need to keep going. Glaceo are a great brand. So this is slightly larger at 42mm, although if you want the smaller, they do have I think a 36mm one. I forget the name of that Airman. I think it's it's like their most classic Airman. But they do come in a variety of sizes. I have to say, it wears smaller. It wears more like a 40, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. And that goes for the Base 22 as well. But as the name suggests, 1953, yeah, for me, it's one of the most quintessential multi-time zone watches out there. I came this close to buying the Base 22 myself, and you can buy them for an absolute bargain now. So right now is a good time to buy, because especially the ones that were made before Glaceo was bought by Invicta. So anyway, okay, so that was number 6. Let's move on now to number 5. Now we've had a lot of aviation pieces so far, but now I want to offer something completely different, and the first used or truly vintage offering in this top 10, and it's got to be Omega, but not just one Omega. There's so many fantastic, truly unique, wonderful Omega watches under $1,000 on the used market. Have a look at the Cosmic, have a look at the Geneve, have a look at the Seamaster DeVille's, especially from the 60s. And what I love about this era of Omega is that a lot of the movements were in-house. Also, they're a lot more solid than the movements they tended to make later on in the 70s. That true classic kind of Mad Men era. They are a little bit smaller. They tend to be more mid-century in size, but the elegance is there, the sophistication, and also you're getting an Omega. I mean, one of the world's most instantly recognizable brands. The Emmanuel Wind is certainly my pick of the bunch. I personally just recently picked up this, which was, actually this was only just under 400, so even less. Although, you know, it's very much patinaed and aged. I would recommend probably spending a little bit more, from about $500 to $1,000, and you can really get some beautiful, beautiful vintage Seamasters especially. Those are my favorites. Just the classic look of them is timeless. Omega really do rule this price range in terms of used vintage watches. You're not going to find a brand with as much heritage and importance to horology and watchmaking than Omega at this price range, without a doubt. So it's not, I'm kind of cheating here, but if I had to pick one, probably 60s Omega Seamaster DeVille, without a doubt. Yeah, and there's so many different variations and dials, you know, from crosshair, ones with sub-seconds, maybe one with a date. Check out a video I did on 10 questions you have to ask. I do recommend, if you're new to buying used, there's certain things you have to look out for, but that video is a great place to start. I'll leave a link in the description, and a little tab will pop up if you're watching this on the computer as well. But yeah, do a research, you know, hunt around, look for a great dealer, and you can find fantastic watch that will last your lifetime. Okay, so that was number 5. Let's move on to my number 4, and we've got to have something Japanese in here, right? We've got to have something Japanese. Now, there's countless Seikos at this price range. I think Seikos, especially the higher end and mid-range to higher end Seikos, really do rule the roost in this price range. But my personal favorite is the Seiko Presage SARW011, because for me it packs a hell of a lot of punch. This aesthetically very much plays faithful to the early Laurel watches, which of course is the historic watch. I think it was their first mechanical piece that Seiko ever made, but way back, I think, was it 1912 or early part of the 20th century. Anyway, Seiko pay homage to this, or an ode to this incredibly important watch. Here we have enamel dial, the styling of it, at the same time updated with modern materials like sapphire, and one of Seiko's best movements in my opinion. A hugely reliable, well-made automatic movement. In-house, of course. This is the 6R27, so we get manual wind, hacking, all the rest of it. This is their high beat movement, so it's not like the slower movements you tend to see at the entry level of Seiko. It's 40mm, has beautiful Romans on the dial, leaf style hands with a little crescent moon counterbalance on that seconds, and we have a power reserve, the date shown in the little sub dial at the 6 o'clock. Beautiful, absolutely stunning, ton of charm, ton of quality. The Presage line, I've reviewed a couple, have a look back. Also blued hands, let's not forget the blued hands, but this is a very classy dress watch. And for me, Presage is the choice at this price range. But there's a ton of divers as well. I think there's the Shogun, there's the Sumo, so have a look at the what Seiko do for divers as well, because at this price range, yeah, you're gonna get a heck of a watch. Anyway, let's move on. So that was number 4. Let's go on to my number 3, and it is the Fortis official Cosmonautis. Now this is not the chronograph version, that I think that will push you up into 1,000 to 2,000 or thereabouts, but this is the simple three-hander with the day-date complication. You get sapphire glass, you get a wonderful, wonderful contemporary flight pilot's watch. Very similar actually to the Sinn 104, which is a favorite of mine. But Fortis is a company, and I'm due to review of Fortis. Unfortunately, I'm having problems with FedEx and the package. But anyway, I will be covering the B42, I think the chronograph, soon. What makes Fortis one of the most underrated brands out there is just their sheer amount of history. They're still independent to this day. They are the official watchmaker for the Russian Space Agency. Much in the same vein as the Omega Speedmaster was selected by NASA, the Russians picked Fortis. But Fortis aren't just important for their space missioned, tested and approved watch. I think they're from Gentry in Switzerland. The guy who founded Fortis way back in 1912, he actually teamed up with a chap called John Harwood. If you're a true horologist and you know the history of horology like the back of your hand, you will know John Harwood. He's the guy, he's the chap that actually invented the first automatic wristwatch. So Fortis have this amazing rich history that is not talked enough about, especially on YouTube. And that is why Fortis for me is a brand that I'm going to be highlighting a lot, because they need to, they deserve it. They're not given enough credit. But the most important thing, I mean, what's the use of having a rich heritage and being independent and, you know, making watches for the Russian Space Agency if their watches aren't any good? They are fantastic. I have a friend who owns one, not this particular one, he owns the B42, the chronograph. And I'm going to review that watch. Long overdue, I'm going to review it. But these things are built like tanks. 200 meters water resistant. This is an automatic based on the ETA, beautifully modified of course. They have their own unique design, still kind of in that tooly aesthetic, much like the Sinn, but with their own little flair there. This particular Cosmonautus is 42 millimeters in size. It is also saturnized with its finish, and I love that little orange second hand, little dash of color there. Not only a little hint of personality, but also more legible. And this is something that watch certainly is. And they've even engraved on the back the insignia of the Yuri Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center. Double anti-reflective coating, sapphire glass, blah, blah, blah. You know, great watches, great watches. And what are these going for? Yeah, $840 at the time of this video. I think it's absolutely pure class, I really do. Okay, so that was number 3. Let's move on to number 2, and it's got to be another used option. For around the $1,000 mark, you can buy a Breitling Aerospace. Now the Aerospace, it's a bit of a divisive one. It was first introduced in 1985 by Breitling. Breitling wanted something a little bit more robust, with incorporating quartz, excuse me, quartz technology. They wanted an anti-digi watch. They were kind of all the rage, especially, you know, with the Arnie we just reviewed back in, when was that released? 83, 82, that kind of time. Breitling wanted a piece of the action. But instead of being a diver like the Arnie, they wanted an aviation watch. Well, of course, it's Breitling. What else are they going to do? So they introduced the Aerospace. Now, we're talking about the first generations, not the newer ones. The newer ones are 42 millimeters now. They're a lot more expensive. So they have chronograph, day and date, alarm, everything you'd expect in a digital watch, but also that analog display as well. Rotating bezel. But what I like about them, there's a kind of lovable ugliness to them. And at the end of the day, I mean, $1,000 for a very tough, robust, iconic Breitling watch, I think is a really good buy. You don't have to spend thousands of thousands to get an iconic Breitling. Unless you get very, very lucky. They are the most accessible Breitling aviation watch. $1,000, you can't really beat it. Sure, it's an acquired taste, and some of them are a little bit dated. They're very much a product of the 80s, but they have a lovable charm about them. You are getting the Breitling quality. They still are, in my opinion, a luxury watch, but very, very usable, very practical. They don't have any pushes or anything like that. You manipulate the functions with the crown, which is quite ingenious. Also that raised bezel, it just screams Breitling. You'll see it in the Colt, in other Breitlings. A bit of a movie star as well. You see them pop up, especially films in the 90s and 80s. You know, it is the MacGyver. I mean, if I had to pick a watch from MacGyver, it'd be that, or kind of the Jack Bauer types, you know. The older one is 40mm as well, so it'll please a lot of the smaller wrists. I came this close to buying one as well on the used market. A lot of bang per buck, and a Breitling for $1,000, can't really beat it. So that's my number 2. Have a look on eBay, consult my eBay hunting videos, questions to ask, all the rest of it. Let's move on to my final number 1. It's got to be probably one of the best military automatic timepieces you can get for under $1,000. It is, of course, the Marathon GSAR Divers watch, sapphire crystal. You got a, I think it's a Sellita SW200 in there. This is water resistant to 300 meters, a true mil spec watch. This thing is hard as nails, really is. It looks hard as nails. I mean, it looks like you could beat your enemy to death with it. They use the little tritium tubes in their looms, so slightly radioactive. They last for 25 years, I think. But it's just typical of this watch. It's almost been over-designed, you know, from the knurling on the crown to that really big, pronounced dive time bezel. The way they've done the edge, it's not coinage. How would you describe it? It's very military-esque in its styling. You have the 24-hour markings on the inner part of the dial, very clear Arabic numerals there, extremely legible drilled lug holes, although because it's quite pronounced with that thick sapphire there, it's not going to work with any kind of formal attire, certainly. But what I love about Marathon is they are one of the gems of the mid-range because they have a heritage going back to the turn of the century. So they are trusted by militaries throughout the world to make watches for their armed forces, and that really is a big seal of approval. You don't need me to tell you that makes it official. That really does. Marathon, despite being Canadian, in fact, actually, I've just bought back a Navigator. This is a $200 pilot's watch. They do watches on various price points. I absolutely love Marathon. They're a Canadian-based company, but all their watches are Swiss-made to the highest standard at this price range. Very, very difficult to beat, honestly. If you're not really into that tooly, kind of harsh, brutalist aesthetic, it might not be for you, but God, they're so macho. I mean, if Jack Bauer was a real person, he'd be wearing a Marathon, he really would. These are also ISO 6425 certified. And if you don't want the 40mm, they have a mid-size in 36, which is, I mean, it doesn't really get much better than that. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. That is my personal top 10. Please do share yours down below. Well, watches you feel at this price range don't get enough attention or a little bit underappreciated that you think have incredible quality, heritage. Let's try and help out as many people as we can. So guys, if you're watching this and you want more suggestions, please do check out the comments. We all know that my audience is one of the most knowledgeable and helpful out there. So let's try and tap into that collective experience and knowledge. So please don't forget to add your thoughts, queries, comments, opinions, all the rest of it down below. Thank you very, very much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful. And as always, guys, I will catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.